Okay, welcome. Today we're going to do a game review for one of my students on Patreon. This is Jacob, who goes by the name Zen Chess on KGS. He's ranked 6Q and playing black in this game, although he's probably quite a bit stronger than 6Q. Here he's facing a 2Q, and white wins this game by a narrow margin. It was a pretty good game, a lot of back and forth. I'm going to put a link up at the bottom of this video to give my Patreon, where you can sign up for very cheap, cost-effective lessons with me. I also do large game reviews, so this is going to be probably about an hour-long video to go over everything in this game. In this game, both players really missed a few urgent key points, especially in the opening, and I'm going to point that out throughout the game, where both players kind of turn their eyes away when there's still urgency. I think one of the hardest things for single-digit queues is knowing when to play elsewhere and not get caught up in playing locally, and similarly when not to play elsewhere. It's a tricky thing that often can decide a game. So, we'll begin. Okay, I've marked a few points here. Now black has played 2, 3, 4 points at Q17 and R4. And now this configuration is most likely black is going to want to make a corner enclosure around the area of B. That's been the classical way to play this opening. I've highlighted all the areas of the board and want to talk about each. Okay, so the most logical moves are going to be to first enclose a corner of 3-4. So the 3-4 point is a very unique point in Go because it has only one side to be approached from, whereas a 4-4 point has two sides it can be approached from. So we consider approaching the 3-4 point or enclosing the 3-4 point more urgent because it only has one possible way to go. A concept in Go is if there's two ways that you can play around an area, it's less urgent because if your opponent takes away one way, you can get the other way. Whereas with a single option, you're going to have to move there first. So this kind of applies to all asymmetrical corner moves, whether it be 5-3, 3-4, the 6-3, and so forth. Symmetrical points such as 4-4, 3-3, and even 5-5 have multiple ways to enter that are symmetrical, especially at the beginning of the game. So they're less urgent. So I'm just going to briefly go over the moves. Okay, A. A seems very similar to B. The difference is B is the side in which white and black are quote-unquote open to one another, meaning that white can approach black in the lower right-hand corner at, say, P3, P4, O3, or O4, and it makes a nice relationship with the D4 stone. If white approaches at A, he doesn't have the backing of his own cornerstone as he does in the lower side. So therefore, A is a little bit less important than B. So if we're talking about which 3-4 point to go for, this is why B is the classical way to play. Of course, now we see the move 1 to the left of B at O4, which is very important. So this is a way that we've seen in artificial intelligence, and AlphaGo has been playing this two-space corner enclosure, and it's become really popular. It was a move that was played in the past, but it was probably the least popular of all enclosures. And funny enough, with AlphaGo, this is one of the most popular corner enclosure. So now, black could conceivably also play at C. This is a very good move because it approaches on the bottom side, which is the widest side. We talk about length of spaces in between. So the number of spaces on the left between white's D4 and white's D16 stone is one less than the space between D4 and R4, because R4 is one further down along the edge. So playing along the bottom is not just important because of the 3/4 stone, but it's also the widest side. So playing anywhere on the bottom is very important right now. So closing the corner is a good move, but also playing in this way we see is common. And now a move like this can lead us to what is known as the mini Chinese Fuseki, or even what was played probably about 6 or 7 years ago quite a bit, the micro Chinese Fuseki. And I've even seen from this point players deciding to make a corner enclosure and playing from here, looking to get both the corner enclosure and the approach. Now, of course, this leaves some unfinished business, so that's a different game altogether. Now, we could conceivably play some sort of Kobayashi Fuseki on the side, but this leaves that wide side approach for white, so this is a little bit less than desirable, but of course, at this level of play in the 2Q, 6Q region, it's not a game loser, but you wouldn't likely see this from professional play. Now, black decided immediately to go into the corner. And I'll talk a little bit about this, but my feeling at this moment in time is that artificial intelligence is showed that the 3/3 invasion early on in the game is not a bad move. And it has developed many new patterns here. Patterns that kind of have changed the thinking about why we go into 3/3, and also how the player at 4/4 responds. For that reason, I think there's still innovations and investigations being done into some of these patterns, and we should absolutely learn how to use these patterns, but only maybe after we've kind of understood some of the more traditional ways of playing. Now, this being said, I would be hesitant to go here immediately because we have some corners to enclose first, and we could still probably invade here after the effect. So, for example, let's just take the corner immediately, and let's say white is going to not give us 2 corner enclosures. Okay, now, if we want, we can take the 3/3 point. The reason being, now that we have the P4 stone, we've gotten to enclose a corner, and now we can go ahead and try to play this way, if that's your kind of interest in exploring that sort of opening. So, the reason I wasn't liking this so much is I was thinking, okay, white blocks at A, which seems a very good move. It blocks towards the upper side stone. But what if white blocks at B here? Okay, I'm going to show this pattern. And now I didn't like the feeling that suddenly, because we didn't get to enclose that lower right corner, white can approach us with his own wall. And if we just show a pretty standard Joseki pattern, I feel that at least this is a very playable game for white. Now, of course, black's going to probably close the upper corner, and then maybe white would look to make sure he doesn't get his area. He'd take this key point at C7. And then black could probably look to take the invasion at B or an approach at A. I think this is a viable game for both players. Black has taken essentially 3 corners, and white has the initiative. In this game, there's no Komi, so maybe black is a little more comfortable. And white has a much thicker, taller position. So, it's a game. White decided to block this way, which is a very good way to play, because it blocks towards the upper side. Now white plays Hane here, and this is the more traditional response to Hane at the head of 2 stones. We could think about extending here. And after this extension, now white could go ahead and approach one of our corners. So white could look to approach here, or look to approach here. My feeling is that either way that it happens, black kind of has wished that he would have closed one of the corners before embarking on the 3-3 invasion. That's my feeling. Okay. Now, we come to another crucial point. Again, because that corner is open, I think black really is looking to make the move at C that I've indicated here. But before we do that, we need to know that the modern way of playing this pattern in the lower left corner is to make one more push at B. The reason is, if white turns at B, it is sente onto the black corner, and it's a little painful to live and help white get such a thick position. So I'll show what happens here. Okay, first let's say black ignores and takes this position. When white ever turns here, black is going to have to live in the corner in this way. And when that happens, you can see that white gets this really thick exterior wall, which is what we're kind of trying to avoid in the more modern variations of this 3-3 invasion. The modern way is to not play the hane at b4, followed by we're trying not to play this exchange, because what it does is it gives white this wonderful shape. So in that way, white's a little bit happy. So here, white played like this, and it's okay that white doesn't turn yet at g2. White can kind of wait to make that move when white wants to seal black in. White plays the checking extension, and black could think about, and I want you to think about this, Jacob, is a single stone, especially a fourth line stone, can be treated light. It can be treated flexibly. And with so much still left in the 2, 3, 4 points, you could look to close the corner. So I would just think about playing like this. If you play like this, what can white do? White's going to probably approach your other corner. You can now probably play this push in sente, and then you can play like so. There's still time, if white wishes, or if black wishes, to peep here, or look to play along this edge. There's still time for the d10 stone. I don't think there's a rush that the d10 stone is going to be severely attacked in any way. So I would like black at this point to consider taking care of those open corners. A single fourth line stone can be treated lightly. Now, that being said, black goes ahead and settles a base here. Now, I like, in this pattern, it's more typical when we play like this to see one more push and then a peep. This would be the more standard way to handle this situation. One more push so that the turn at g2 doesn't happen, because the turn at h2 doesn't become absolute sente. If white turns here, black doesn't have to answer with the hane in connection. For one, black can answer with a straight down move like this, and obviously white can't just follow along. So let's go back to our game, and I said peeping at A could be a good question. Let's see. The peep at A is a good question because if black answers, okay, now we can play like this. I think now it feels like white was getting pushed around and got into bad shape. So white won't really want to play like that. White's going to go ahead and play a descending move. And then black's going to need to push out this way. and then make life here. And this is how white can resist that peep. But is that so bad for black? No, it's not really. What we have to remember is that the e5 peep was kind of an asking move. We're asking a question. Is white going to answer that peep or resist that peep? And if white resists the peep, the e5 move is still good for aji, still good latent potential. Now the e10 stone, as I've said, is a fourth line stone that is pretty flexible. It's not easy right now for black to settle that stone directly and make a base, but similarly, it's not easy for white to just surround the d10 stone and just capture it on a big scale. So black can just ignore. Now what's white going to do? White doesn't want to get into so many complications, so white needs to lock down that e5 stone. And that's why that asking move can be useful, because white has to spend an extra move. That e5 stone still has some latent potential in it. Well, now look, black goes ahead and makes the second corner. Okay, white's going to block the big extension. Now black can take the 3-3 point on that side. Now, even if white attacks this stone, is it so severe? Well, black could try to answer directly and pull the stone out, or black could just go about his business and expect that right now black has all four corners. And now, yes, white has a big framework on the left side, but it's not a perfect framework, and there's aji all over. It's hard to see how black is going to die completely. So long as black can make life for d10 and or make a big framework for himself on the right side, I think this is a doable game for black, assuming that you can make good sabaki, good shape in your opponent's territory. There's a lot of little footholds that black can grab. So this is a way black could play. Or if you don't like playing like that, you can kind of just skirt yourself out. This is a soft way of playing, but not so bad for maybe a 6Q, because this makes it really hard for white to go ahead and attack. Even if white tries to attack you in this way, there's just almost no way of keeping you boxed in and making a severe way of killing. And white doesn't have any territory at this point of any significance. So black has three corners. He can make sabaki in that center group, still look to invade the upper left side. I think it's a fine game. So we can peep first to ask a question. Now, here, without the peep, I think white's going to take advantage. White should have taken advantage, missed an opportunity, because now black needs to live like this. Now, when black lives like this, we can see that those two stones that black has on the left side are up against a much thicker white structure. This white structure doesn't have any weakness, and it's harder to attack. Black is sealed in the corner completely and has not enclosed either right-hand corner. So this is a very different game than the one I just showed. So I believe that this would be a favorable opening for white. White played the Hane here, which is less good than the G2 move. Now white plays this sacrifice technique in the game, and black captures. Okay, so before I get into that, the sacrifice isn't so great. What white should do here is first play like this. If black looks to capture that stone, white can actually ignore, because black's already alive, and can just switch. If he ever captures, it's fine. Can play this move. And white is still strong on the outside, and got the initiative to take the p4. When white plays like this, he takes gote. He loses the initiative in playing like this. and so black gets to play the peep. So first let me go back a little bit. Let's go back to here. I think you should probably just descend. The reason being, this group had the ko for life, which was pretty distasteful. Now if we peep, now playing like this, black's alive without a ko. In the game, this is how the game went. There's still the possibility for much later to play a ko here. So I don't like that as much. Okay, so that being said, this is not the best sequence because white ends gote. Now we've taken a peep here. Now I want to ask the question to you, Jacob. These two stones, D7 and D10, they're kind of strong enough, right? I've already said D10 was kind of light. There's no severe attack for kind of surrounding those two stones on a big scale. So it seems that the E5 move, the peep here, is to both attack the white wall and to gain some strength for the two stones. But I want to ask, can you really severely attack that white wall? Because remember, you have that B1 move that keeps you in ko. White can wrap around you at G2. Also, white has the move here at C8. So I don't think this white wall can be that severe. What I want you to consider is instead of this peep, now that we're strong enough, why don't we seize the initiative and take that corner move that we omitted so much earlier. Take this right away. Okay, so again, white's going to go ahead and have to approach in the area. And now we still have some time to peep. We still have some time to peep because it's a little better because we've ensured that we're not going to get so distracted by this fight that we miss sight of getting the enclosure in the lower left. Because that's what happened temporarily here. We peeped, and white answered. So we got a little lucky. We could have now enclosed at P4 because white answered, but there was no guarantee that white was going to answer. What if white resists that peep? So how would we answer? Well, we'd probably have to block here. And white plays like this. We're going to block there. Or we're going to block here. If we block here, okay. Now, we could make the corner enclosure. But if you cut, it's not as severe. Because remember, you're still looking at a pretty painful situation if the ko ever arises at B1. And so long as white is safe on the outside, that ko at B1 is white's privilege to start when he's ready to. So we have to be aware that white can resist our peep at this point. Okay, white doesn't. White connects. So black has an opportunity now again to play P4. But black decides, let's continue an attack. Let's keep the pressure up with G5. But is it severe? I'd say no. Now you could have lost the opportunity to make your enclosure here. Because what are we going to do that's really severe on those stones in the left? Okay, let's say we answer in the lower right. You see, black's answer in the lower right is kind of necessary because white still has moves at A, B, or C. So with white with so many options, it's hard to attack. If you try to attack, what's going to happen? Where are we to attack? I can't see the best next move. See, something like this isn't great. Because now, what do we... You see, white can escape along this edge. Even if white doesn't want to escape on that edge, can still play in this direction. With white with so many ways to play, I don't think that this move is as severe as black thinks it is. Nevertheless, white seems to be concerned, and white wants to play. Okay. So white played a Hane here. I think this might be an overplay. Okay, because the Atari at B is very severe, and this move, H4 at B, is the key point of this entire game. I'm going to say it repeatedly. The move at H4 at B is the key point of the entire game. I'm going to bring it up over and over again because it just keeps on coming up. White probably should have just played extension here, and I could imagine double Hane. I could see this is probably a stronger way for white to play, and white still gets that enclosure approach over at P3, denying black of the corner enclosure. So this is why, going back to the very beginning, I think it would have been better for black to try to at least get that enclosure in that corner. Enclosing the lower right corner, I'm going to say this again, is almost sente because black enclosing it at any point, white is in theory never supposed to give black two corner enclosures. So white is going to immediately start to address the upper right corner. Alright. So I probably think white should have played like this. White plays like this. Now, black played at A, but what if we had played at B? Keeping white separated here is really crucial. White's going to need to live on that side. And now those three stones really seem out of place. Having this, the two Hanes here, now we can see why it was probably an overplay. I don't see how white would probably follow up here. Now black can turn his attention again and get out there and make a corner enclosure, and white's three stones still feel a little lonely. So when white gets out like this, I think it's necessary, but I'm more happy with black's running group than white's running group, and black found the time to make the enclosure in the lower right. So I think this is a pretty good way of playing to immediately Atari here. It's a point that I'm going to bring up over and over again, H4, that Atari, separating the two white groups. Now, again, it's still crucial. If we play it now, the same situation. Can now Hane here, and if white decides to follow up, now there's a little bit of weakness here, but I think we can look to play very severe. Or like this. Still think it's doable. Like this, I still feel pretty comfortable and confident as black. Now we're going to have to leave that ko hanging there. We're going to have to leave the ko there, but white pretty much is going to have to give up on those 5 stones, which is a little painful. Okay, so here I'm saying both players seem to be blind to the urgency and the size of the move at A, the H4 move. Black does see the urgency of making that corner enclosure, but what if by not taking H4, white tries to take advantage of you? And now white's bad move, white's overplay. Let's see, get my tool up. this overplay of Hane here now becomes a little bit of a good move, because now black's getting Haned at the head of 2 stones and the foot of 2 stones at h5 and h8. Okay, let's see. White misses the point. White got distracted, the fact that black made a corner enclosure. And although r6 is a vital point for this large knight's move enclosure, this is not the time to play it. This is what I mean by both players are looking now for big moves instead of urgent moves. For one, in terms of big moves, there's a lot of things to be done, such as approach the upper right. There's plays all over on the for white on the top and left side. But really, none of those moves are as important as just following up with this unfinished situation. Whoever gets the first move in this situation is going to take control of it. So here, now if black looks to take control in this way, it's not as good because there's some real bad weaknesses at A or B. So let's see. If we play like this, it looks like, I don't know, I mean, this is kind of a complicated fight, but I could not see the best way for black to not get shredded here. I thought all of this seems like black is going to slowly get torn apart here. Not to mention there's still that B1 ko. This whole area does not seem very good. So I think there could be that pretty severe move there. Even this move seems to be pretty good. It's hard for me to see exactly how black kind of deals with this situation. You can see that it strikes this double Hane here, or the Hane at the head of the 2 stones here, really squeezes black hard. So black playing O3 misses the point. Similarly, white this is kind of what I'm going to call needs to look up from the situation, or following your opponent. So black made the corner enclosure, white says, oh, I better reduce and make sure it's not too big. And then black says, I'm going to pincer. Both players have turned their eyes away from the urgent situation in the center. Neither player is seeing that whoever first gets this kind of opportunity, whoever can squeeze on that first, now it's pretty big. See, now black gets this vital point. Huh? This is very big. Very difficult for white to deal with. And now we actually see, what was the point of r6? If black had followed up with all this, r6 is just kind of a stone there. I mean, yes, it limits the enclosure, but this could also become a liability. White's going to have to maybe struggle with how to play around with r6, or how to defend the 4 stones that are getting surrounded in the center of the board. So black misses that point, and then white gets this. So now white has taken advantage of this center situation. Now, this is not the right time to play this type of cutting move, this sacrifice. I'll show you why in just a second. Alright, not the right move here. Let's look at if black had just played like so. Well, if white answers, great. That's good. This is good news. Black gets out and has good strong shape. If white tries to pressure, now we can see that there's a lot of cutting points here, and we don't know exactly if we want to take the cutting point at A or at B, because we also have Ataris at C and D, and we have the Hane at E. So if we just play Hane at E, now what's white going to fix? Is white going to fix this one? Well, okay, then we would take 2 stones. Is white going to fix this one? Well, now we can play this comfortably. Is white going to fix like that? Well, now we have a peep for free and a peep for free in each direction. There's a lot that we can do without playing this cut, because once we play that cut, this is a little bit of a thank you. We've actually played A and B, fixing the cutting point there with B, something that white already wanted to do. So I know that you played the Atari to try to get Sente, but that's not really what happened. Now, that being said, white played this diagonal move. This diagonal move is not the right shape. White should really play at B or play at A. The diagonal move is neither A or B, and I'm going to go through that. But before I do, I want to now look at what happened here in the center. White got the initiative to play this move, to play the Hane there. White was the first one to stop fooling around with the lower right-hand corner and switch back to the center. Okay? And got to cut off black, make a little bit stronger group in the center. Black is still pretty needy with that group that's hanging out in the center. And I want us to look at the R6 and the R8 stone. When we look over that, is that really where we want those 2 stones? Couldn't either player have just, you can have an extra move at the center of the board, or you can have a stone over at R6 and R8. Any player would have just skipped out on that to continue on to get a better position in the center. It's not the correct timing to turn our attention away from such a critical fight. So, now, let's look at what happened between here. White could play like this. Now, the reason we sometimes play like this is because it keeps the most liberties for white. Alright, black's going to take the H4 point. And now, white can play like this, making a strong wall and connecting out. This is a fine result. Now, black's going to need to stay connected. Probably play like this. Black can conceivably connect under and in the Kowaji, but it really feels like at that point, white gets a much better position here. White has all the outside power. And black has, only lived with a few points in that whole area. So sometimes we play like this when we want to not limit our own liberties as white. Or white can play like this. Now this move has less liberties as white, but it also reduces black's liberties. So when black Hane's here, we're a little liberty deficient. So we grab a hold of that stone. The thing is, black is not so comfortable playing this key sequence of H4 and connection, because now this move has given black a liberty shortage. Black has issues. He'll get cut. So black is going to first have to struggle. And now black is dealing with the Ko at the B1, having to save those H3 stones in this little bit of a painful way, and is going to get harassed a little bit in the center of the board. So this way probably would have been the best for white. Instead, white makes this move, which is neither A nor B. It's improper shape. Okay, At this point, with all that improper shape, let's still grab the h4 point. I'm going to keep pointing this out. Because now you'd played the push at d11. I want to save that because when we forego that d11 push, we take advantage now that white has some bad aji. White has the pushing aji at d11 or c10 or c7. There's a little bit of bad aji to exploit. When we play the move that you played, this is an overplay. We reduce our own liberties on these stones, meaning the same sequence is not as strong. We don't have that push through aji as in the last variation. Because d11, we'd rather, at this point, if I can, I'd rather take off the d11 and take off this move. And therefore, it's much better to have a situation like this. Sorry. Ooh. Than to make all those exchanges. So this push is a little bit of aji keshi. Keshi is to erase, and aji is the potential, the lingering taste. So, okay, now this cuts an overplay. This move by white is soft. White can take advantage by just pushing you here. Like this, I think we can see that black overplayed. Black now has too much to deal with. Right? I don't see this ending well. So maybe black just would play like this. You might have to give up a lot here. Okay. So this is too soft by white. Okay. Now since white has liberty shortage, we can play this way. White cannot cut us because we have a ladder. And white can't play an extension net type of thing to trap us because we have this kind of like a nose tessuji. It's a capturing tessuji. So white is captured. So when we play like this, white will have to prevent something like that, and we can get out in a better way. So this is a better way to escape. This way of escaping is a little more cramped. We've got to be careful here. There's some pretty bad aji. I'm not sure how black handles something like this. Definitely gets messy. This ko situation, or even maybe to play like this. You know, the suffering can be large here. So we've got to be careful. Now, when you haned here, I was thinking maybe you're trying to consider a large-scale sacrifice. What do I mean? Push like this for a large-scale sacrifice. White must first play like this. And now look at this wall. Yes, we could give up those center 3 stones, which that's, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12. This is about 18 points of sacrifice. But look at the dominating wall across the rest of the board. And again, there's still the h4 move. We're going to keep coming back to h4. There's still the h4 move. So that dominating wall across the middle of the board could be worth 18 points or more. I think this way is a strong way of playing and seeing how to sacrifice stones. Now, white would first have to play h11. It's good to know this. White would be cut here, and there's no way. Oh, not like this. Sorry. Like this. White is dead. So, good way. So if I were you, I would have probably pushed here at K13. Instead, now we switch back. So there's this like push and pull that black's doing that's not the right technique. It's like every time you make a move with these stones, you damage the upper side stones. And every time you move the upper side stones, you damage the middle stones. So in this type of fight, you know, white is pushing black around a little bit. I also think this is probably not the best move. White played outside. I think if white plays here, this would get really messy for black. It's very hard. You know, even before white plays this, if white first were to play here, make sure that white has that connection in Sente. Like this is extremely messy for black. It's very hard for black to control this situation. Okay, luckily white played a Hane on the outside. And then white played this move. It would have been better to play at A. White's planning on leaving the cut at M16. So he plays like this. You cut for life at M16. Now he can Hane like that. While white is squeezing that A group, there's still a lot of bad Aji over the B group. So this becomes a difficult board for black because white has now made this wall across this line of N17 to N12. So black can't expect too much on the right side. Black doesn't really have a large territory anywhere to speak of. Black has some bad Aji with the B group. The A group is getting squeezed. There's not a lot of time for black to make territory. He's going to be very busy keeping up with his groups. It's a little bit too busy of a game for black. This move is not as effective. The reason it's not as effective is now when black plays here, white can't play that move that I showed. There's no way to squeeze the group. So that's why it's better if white plays this, because that way you can Hane over. So when white plays this shape, it's not as good because he can't Hane over. So black should cut immediately to take life. Playing this doesn't make life in the best way. Okay, here it's very urgent to live with that topside group. That topside group is struggling. And if you can live, especially if you can live in Sente, let's do it. Pushing here first is a key move. Now I think we're alive. Now I'm pretty sure we're alive. Now we could switch back to the move H4 at A. I said I'd keep bringing that up. Now with this, black's going to have to live in Gote. Now, the reason this would be very good for white is when white can play F18 and make black live in Gote, white can seal off his side, get rid of any Aji that white has. Now white has a good 25 to 27 points in the upper left. Black doesn't have any good endgame there. Black has to live in Gote here, and now white can take the initiative on the rest of the board. That's why I don't think it's good for white to play this. White needs to take that. Similarly, if black can go ahead There's unfinished business, I said, on the upside. So there's unfinished business at h4, which I've pointed out a lot. There's the weak group up top that needs one more move to really secure life at b. There's a weakness and bad aji with the group at c. So this move at p7, we have too many urgent things. We have urgency at a, urgency at b, which the urgency at a actually ties into the urgency at c. We can't switch to another group over at p7. It's getting way too busy. So, also, white can see that attacking that single stone isn't that severe. White can still drag that stone out later. White can still invade with that stone at r3. So white still has the option later of invading the corner. So white can ignore that, play here, force you to live. Then white can fix up here, make you have to try to fix your bad aji here, and then white can reduce the center. So you see, white has now fixed all of his problems in Sente, and now white can look to make a checking extension at B, white can invade at A, white can turn at C, can start the ko at C, or turn at D, making you have to play C in Gote. So white has so many options now, and white has no weak groups. So white doesn't have any weak groups and forced you around. So if white would have just seen that, white would win the game. This is a moment for white to seal the game and to just win. However, white decides to pull it out. So white got too attached to saving that stone, lost focus of how to win a game. So this is a good point on how to win a game. We seal up everything and we force black to take a bunch of Gote moves. Black has to take Gote to live there, hits the key point here, black takes Gote there. Then white starts to reduce any center and side potential here. And now white still has plenty of follow-ups on the lower side, so black can't really consolidate there. And at this point, we can see black just doesn't have enough territory. But instead, white got really attached to saving this group. And this is a very heavy way. Giving up the Ponuki capture, this is a very heavy way. So now, when white plays this, white almost loses the game. And with white q16, this is where I want to see black has his opportunity to take advantage and win the game. Okay? You saw all those moves I showed where white fixed all those weaknesses. But now with the Ponuki, black can take advantage. So the q16 move seems really severe, right? It seems like white's going to swallow up the whole corner if you don't answer. But if you can play some extremely urgent points, you can take advantage and turn the table on him. So again, this is a key move. Now look at what's happened. The group at A is not alive fully. The group at B is trapped because the Ponuki, the captured stone at P6, and the group at C also needs some more moves to live. So now white is going to be busy with 3 weak groups. So the triangled move that I marked up at Q16, it seemed that it was going to swallow up the whole corner, but really black just needs to look up, find the urgency, and hit that. So there's a lot of unfinished business that players in this game just aren't seeing. A lot of it's related around this h4 move, but now black has gotten distracted again. Answers. And now white, again, okay. Now black finally looks up and says, okay, there's bigger business to be done. White could probably live directly at A. There's some complicated things that could happen at A. But let's say white's looking to live directly. Now black, again, you're missing the big points here. Now, h4, I said, it's nearly been 100 moves, almost 100 moves, still been a blind spot. If white just fixes this now, his game is close to winning. Okay, this is not the right way to attack. There's not points here. Just white can simply seal in the side here. Make black have to live in this way. So, what did I say? I said this could be white's losing move because with e15, black can live in sente and move back to the bottom. So black can play here, and now black can get back to the main business of the game. Black is actually alive here. Let's look at what I'm seeing. We're going to need some deep reading because can white actually, if white's trying to play really severe and kill? But what happens? So we see that white can't resist everything. So this is why playing f18 earlier for white would have been sente against black. So black playing e15 is sente. Sente life. There's no way to kill. If he plays like this, well, now we can just live directly. That's directly alive. So the main point is we get to turn back around to h4. So this move here and pulling back, now black played this. Now because black was already alive in sente, this could be the losing sequence for black again, because black takes all these moves, and that's a painful way now. So black lives in gote at the top, and he probably could have lived in sente. So now finally white gets h4. So now it's a hard game for black. I'd say white's winning. Black can take advantage here by trying to play clever sequence like this. So I don't think if that white can be killed. Let's see, first here. So this would become too much of a painful ko. So I think white can't be killed like this. So white lives in gote like this. Peep here. Maybe shut it in here. Or like this. Like this, I think this can be a close to winning game for black. This is a much closer game than what happened. So there's some tricks to playing R2. Now both players again getting distracted up here. This area is now settled. We need to look up. These pushes here are endgame. Alright, played this move, but there could be some interesting play here. Because we can force some interesting scenarios Let's see. We could force something interesting here where we... If you hear the screaming in the background, that's my baby is getting tickled. Okay. Alright, so I think there's some more potential that could be used at C14. Alright. R11. Now at this golden opportunity, White has turned his head to K10. And White is actually just looking to capture a few stones here in the middle of the board. That's 6 points for the black stones, plus the 4 points around it. So 10 points. So it's really just a 10-point capture. So here, you can let him capture that. 10 points. And you can turn back to this area. If you turn back to this area, make White live small, and now look what we have. We've sealed off the whole corner, made more territory along the bottom, and minimized the amount of White points. I'd like you to go to the end of the game, and we'll take a look at this. Look how little White has in the lower right. And at the end of the game, White had almost 20 points in the lower right. This could be a pretty close game also. So Black would probably win that game. So this is an opportunity, a golden opportunity where White has made a mistake. But Black just mindlessly answered that peep. So really think about that peep as just saving a couple stones. All the groups that would be cut from that peep are already alive. Both Black and White. So since both groups on all sides of that cut are already alive, it's a purely score related cut. It's just the points under those stones. Now when White gets this, White got that peep at K10 and Black obliged by playing K11. Now when White plays this, White's winning. Okay. White could probably play here. And Black should probably peep here. I think it's stronger. I'm marking... we can play some sacrifice techniques here. And reduce how much points White has. So we can get more points in this area. Okay. This is not where the most points are available. Black is now missing. There's a lot of edge points still to be played. It might not seem like it, but this is extremely large. Also, a move that stayed on the board for a while is this move is extremely large because White has to back off here. So, both players missing some of the point here by consolidating 5 or 6 points, but edge moves are often worth a lot more than 5 or 6. We also have the Ko at B1, which is worth a lot more, and a move that is extremely valuable that both players are missing is the cut at A. Okay, so this is a pretty good move by White, but I wanted to point out one thing that White could have done. White could have played an endgame Tetsuji here, sacrificing this stone to then play this. And then Black has to back off in this way. This would have been a more Sente way to break into that area than what White did. White just played this. And Black cut. So, not the best way for White. Here, Black misses a chance. I think this is an overplay by White. See, Black can take Sente here, and now this is a huge win because whenever Black does this, white has to capture to keep 2 eyes in that center group. So black can fix that big endgame point at c7 and capture the O2 stone. Now I think suddenly black's winning by a handful of points. Black turns here. I think black's ahead by 3 or 4 points. So playing here, now white has almost 20 points in the corner. I said remember that diagram that I had showed earlier. So this move, M7, not a good move. There's so many more things. There's bigger in-game at the edges. E up top is Sente. White has to back off to F. A is huge. C is huge because C provokes D. Also, B, yeah, B is a little bit of A combined with B is a little bit of A will force white to play B. You turn at A, white plays B. You can get a lot of Sente endgame going. Okay. Edges are still bigger. C to fix the Agi at D. The cut at A is what everyone is missing. Ooh, not the best idea here. Look up. Both players need to look up. If white had just done this, white wins the whole game. Easy win. Because it's not a big deal if black captures that one white stone. Okay, now everyone is ignoring the move at A. Locally, black can play at B. It's fine. So, this is the right way to play here. I don't know why everyone's ignoring A, but they are. Don't play this move. Now, here's the last chance for black. Cut here and play here. The reason for that is, for one, we create some liberty shortage and problems, and we're going to be able to capture those 2 stones at B8. And now white has to capture here. See, we can make sure that we get this because now there's no way for white to connect. So this cut ensures that we're going to not only fix the C7 area, it ensures that we're going to be able to capture those 2 stones. So we play here, and now this whole white group doesn't have 2 eyes. If black doesn't capture that, he doesn't have 2 eyes. Let's say he does something like this. This group is not yet 2 eyes. Now we're 2 eyes. Are we? Yes. So we can force a lot, we can save a lot of area. Now this, what we're protecting from here, okay, let's look at what we're protecting from. We're protecting from this, but this whole sequence is white gote anyway. So this is not the biggest way to play endgame. Takes gote. Alright, white is not playing the right sequence. So now here's white's potential losing move. Why does white connect this? White can afford to lose 1 stone. It's just 1 stone. If he can capture that whole left area, look how big. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 points that would just be 0. This is just saving 1 stone. Okay. Black gets this. That's huge. Now, when we connect here, White's virtually dead if he doesn't win this ko. If he doesn't win this ko, he's dead. So I don't know why black turns here. If black had played this, that would have also been better. Connect here, force. See, this is just showing that white can only live by killing that ko. So I don't know why black is losing focus. White's losing focus. Black turning away from this huge ko area. Alright, everyone's not seeing this life and death situation. It's probably not the best way. If you want to live here, you just play like that. Okay. Now we got to play at A. It's a Sente sequence. Do it now. Play here. White will have to capture. Alright. Now we're playing this ko. And now here, black has a chance to win the game. It's the final chance black has to win the game. If you ignore this and you capture, white cannot follow up with his ko threat. If white follows up with his ko threat, you connect, and now he's dead because he can't make an eye here. That's only a one-eyed group. And obviously you can't make an eye there. So this move is the final losing move. Because what ends up happening is that white not only lives, but he captures those two stones, which is a big difference in the overall score. And so white wins by 4 points here. Had black just played this sequence of ignoring, white can't follow up on the ko threat. So white captures, then black plays like this. If he plays like this, he's won the ko. He gets to answer the ko threat as well as winning the ko, so he didn't lose anything in the ko. His group is alive in the lower left corner. So this makes up for the loss that happened over at F1. And I think I said in this, it's about 5 to 6 points black win. So that's the end of my commentary. I'll just show the final position of the game. Oh, sorry. Get to the final position. Okay, and this is the final position of the game. So, here we have a white win. Alright, I hope this review helped. I hope it all makes sense, and that you learn not to miss urgent points, and to when to play elsewhere and when not to play elsewhere is probably the key point in this game, as it is in most games. There's some in-game stuff, obviously, and some life and death, and shape, so lots of things to cover. Alright, thanks again, Jacob. Bye-bye.